It's April 13th, 2023, and I'm starting my fourth spring of these, well, grass growing higher around added dirt experiments. I observed this back in the spring of 2020 that dirt I placed shortly after the snow had melted grew up quite high right around the edges, but not anywhere else. I've tried to recreate that later that spring and then the following two springs, and I haven't had a ton of success. There was some last year. But this year, what I'm looking forward to with this experiment, what I'm working on with this experiment is trying different colors. So in addition to the dirt that is here from that it would be like previous years to have that as somewhat of a control, and this is just dirt, a small amount of kind of gravelly dirt I dug out of our stream, which I think fairly matches what I've had previous years and just what we would use on our driveway when I first observed it. I have a piece of cardboard that is painted black, a just regular piece of cardboard, and a white painted piece of cardboard. This is to get an idea if like heat from the sun, because this is darker, if that is causing it to warm up better and make the grass grow faster around it. That was a idea a neighbor of mine had. So that's what this year's experiment is. In addition to this location, I will have two other plot locations that have this same setup of 4 test plots to get an idea if it's just happening here in this type of grass or it's happening in other types of grass as well. It's been less than a week since the snow's melted off all these locations I'm doing it. They didn't all melt off at exactly the same time, but even though it's been that relatively short amount of time, the last couple days, and particularly today, have been very warm. Today it got up to about 80 degrees Fahrenheit here, which for this time of year in April is really quite warm. So unfortunately, I'm not getting it in right after the snow melted. I was busier earlier in the week, which is what I did when I put it down that first year and had such good results, or at least when I first observed it, thus best kind of looking at it results. It's May 7th and I'm bringing this year's experiment to an end. I am seeing the increased growth of grass around my gravel test plot here in the driveway, which gives me a base level that there is something to work with in that it's occurring, which I've not always seen with these experiments. I am, however, not seeing it in other locations, such as the field or the other short grass kind of pseudo-lawn experimental area I was doing this on. Despite that being mown for 3 years, it still is a substantially different grass type than the rest of this lawn, and it's maybe a good indication to me of it not happening. That's not a good place to do future experiments, and that results from it are not fully representative of the lawn. Seeing this increased growth of grass occurring relatively strongly this year, which I've not every year I've been doing this, makes me think that it depends on the year in terms of how strongly it's occurring, and that just some years it happens and some years it doesn't. This experiment did not go perfectly well in that this cardboard curled up in a what should have been predictable way, but there's still stuff happening with it, with the grass growing relatively strongly off both the south and the north side of each of these, and there isn't, I'd say, any substantial difference between the one that's painted white, the one that's just cardboard colored, and the one that's painted black, which shouldn't be too much of a surprise considering that this corrugated cardboard has air space in between, which should act as kind of an insulation, and thus the top color may not really cause much of a difference on the bottom. The cardboard probably isn't the best material for doing this sort of experiment. I've also seen increased growth around a log that we have in our driveway. Just kind of generally around it, not so much like directly from under it like you see with these cardboards, despite it having a similar diameter. In this adjacent spot where I added the gravel a couple days after that experiment started, I have some grass along its edge that's growing up taller, and I think also kind of a thicker amount, though that's harder to tell. This is occurring, these kind of increased grass growth is occurring kind of in many places along this driveway where I added gravel, not just in this location. Though this year's experiment did not produce clean results, from observations of it and other observations, I still think that warmth is the most probable reason that I'm seeing the increased growth around these additions. Whether that's warmth is from the increased sun absorption or maybe some insulation that's occurring with the stuff on top, it's not possible for me to say at this point. I have plans for next spring to change this experiment to get the type of experiment that I was going for this year. Yay, recording is still happening.